it's Josephine here, your performing arts business coach, talent manager, speaker, and mentor. I'm excited today because I am going to be bringing my much loved signature course internationally this year. That is my goal. And I was very fortunate enough back in 2022 to interview somebody by the name of Deborah Laws. Now, Deborah Laws is somebody who is she's a studio owner coach from the UK. She specializes in the UK market. And so my goal when I connected with her back in 2022 was really just to get her insights from an international perspective. And we did an episode, it was episode 58, called Creating a Dance Business by Design with Deborah Laws. Anyway, so recently there was an opportunity, and this is what I wanted to share with you today. Recently there was an opportunity for me to sponsor her event in the UK. She's running a dance business conference in Great Britain, and I jumped on as an international sponsor, which was a really big step for me because I have decided that I want to reach more beautiful humans and studio owners and teach them the benefits of having a talent management service and talent agency in-house and how that can really grow their studio business. So right up until now, I've very much specialized in teaching Australian and New Zealand studio owners that information. And now I'm bringing it to the UK. And I'm just dipping my toe in, and that sponsorship was my first toe dip. But in the spirit of things, what I wanted to do today was bring back that episode from, a year ago and share it with you, because if you missed it, or maybe you heard it, but it was a year ago, I think you're going to really enjoy it. So I will be bringing to you Creating a Dance Business by Design with Deborah Laws today, which is very exciting. So that interview is coming up really soon. Now, before we jump into that interview and recap that for you, I just wanted to let you know that, again, in celebration of my UK, let's call it a UK launch, but it's not. It's an international launch. It just means I'm opening up the doors to people overseas, and I have an intention to share Talent Manager Bootcamp overseas. But in the spirit of that and dipping my toe into that, UK market, I am giving away what's it called? I've got a how-to guide. It's a how-to guide, go from studio owner to talent manager. And by the way, this interview that's coming up has nothing to do with talent management. But, just in the spirit of me getting out there and spreading my global wings, I just wanted to give this to you because I'm actually providing this how-to guide to the guests at the UK conference. I'm giving this guide to them with this special UK promo code. So I thought, you know what? Why don't I share that on my podcast today as well, in the spirit of it all? And so I'm going to give you guys today a how-to guide to go from studio owner to talent manager. Normally $27, but to you today, it is absolutely free. I'm popping a link in the show notes, and all you need to do to claim your free gift today is type in coupon code UK23. That's it. It will expire after the event, guys. And the event's happening in a couple of weeks. So make sure you jump on and grab this offer while you can. So that's going to be available on my store, which is josephinelancuba.com/store. Just scroll down and then you'll find a how-to guide, go from studio owner to talent manager. Click through and pop in the code once you get to the checkout, UK23, and that'll wipe it out. That'll wipe out the cost for you, my special listeners, today to celebrate my UK flying of wings over the UK. That made no sense, but that's what I'm sticking to, okay? Okay, cool. So that's it. That's what I want to share with you. Link is in the show notes. Now, let's do this. You're going to absolutely love this. Deborah Laws, rock star, very, very knowledgeable around the dance studio space. Enjoy the show. Creating a Dance Business by Design with Deborah Laws. Here we go.
Hey there, I'm Josephine Lancuba and you're listening to Business, Arts and All That Jazz. I've been immersed in the creative business world and performing arts industry for over 20 years. I know from experience that being an artist, a creative, or running a creative business can be a tough gig, but I'm here to tell you it's possible. I went from having $0 to my name and living below the poverty line, to then living paycheck to paycheck, to finally living a life of comfort, happiness, passion, and even stability. In this podcast, I peel back the curtain and share with you the ups and downs of my journey. Plus, I tap into the minds of creative industry experts to discover their paths to success. I know you have a spark inside of you, that little voice that tells you to reach for the stars. I want to help you step into your limelight, to have the courage to live a life you dream of, a life that you design. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk business, arts, and all that jazz. Hi there, thank you so much for being on the show, the amazing Deborah Laws. Welcome.
Hi, Joe. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I came to know you actually through your podcast, Dance Boss, which I'm a big fan of, and I love to listen to like a lot of industry podcasts, but I was very much drawn to yours. Then we connected through social media.
Joe, let me just stop you. I'm really sorry. That's not my podcast. I don't want to claim somebody else's. My podcast is the Ultimate Dance Business Podcast.
Beautiful.
The Dance Boss is Erin.
I know who it is. Yeah, I've just said the wrong one.
Bumper. I just thought there's no point in carrying on and then you're having a dodgy beginning that's difficult 100%. To edit.
Ultimate Dance Business. I'm writing it down so I get it right. Ultimate Dance Business Podcast. I do actually listen to your podcast, by the way. I've just said the wrong one.
That's okay. Don't worry.
I probably listen to that. All right. So Ultimate Dance Business Podcast.
Yeah.
Love it. Let's do this again. All right. Take two. We'll do that to the camera. There's the edit. Hello, Deborah, and welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here with us today.
Hi, Joe. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, I came to know you through your amazing podcast, Ultimate Dance Business Podcast, and I am a big fan. I listen to lots of different podcasts each week that are industry-based, but I definitely am very much drawn to yours. And then we connected through social media, which was really, really cool. So, I'm loving that that's happened. I do find that social media is a bit of a love-hate relationship, but for these reasons, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many connections that we wouldn't normally make otherwise. So, and of course, we're on completely opposite sides of the world. So we probably wouldn't have crossed paths otherwise.
Yeah, and just for everyone listening, I'm in Sydney, Australia, but tell everyone at home, where are you calling in from today?
So I'm from a little area in the UK called Devon, and I'm just outside of a city called Plymouth.
Yeah, nice. Now, I wanted to really dive into chatting to you today because I find you absolutely fascinating, and actually because I am on a similar path, I suppose. You've run a studio for over 27 years. And that was before becoming a mentor and running your own online coaching business. You went on to franchise your theatre school and you were servicing 800 plus students at any one time. So before we jump into all of that amazing, juicy stuff, let's go back to the beginning. And, I would love to know, how did your dance journey start?
Oh, right back to the very, very beginning.
Maybe skip the toddler years, but just that passion for dance and how that translated then into business.
Sure. So, I danced all my life as a child, went off to probably one of the UK's top 3 UK performing arts colleges, danced a little bit, but I was one of those children that used to get such horrendous nerves stage fright that it just took the joy out of dance for me. So I always wanted to be a teacher. So when I finished college, I danced professionally for a really short time, went straight into teaching, loved teaching, had a fabulous mentor in my dance teacher who I worked for, and just found myself suddenly in my 20s and 30s creating multiple schools. I had 5 schools spread across 3 different counties in the UK. And then I didn't actually franchise my theatre school. I was a franchisee with a theatre school, which I also loved. Yeah. And had my own premises, had a team of about 25 teachers, full-time administrators. Like it was quite, people used to talk about my empire. Which in the UK, that's quite big. Most schools don't grow to that kind of size in the UK.
Yeah, I love that. And that's really interesting that you chose to be a franchisee in that theatre school. Was that different to the other sites that you have? You mentioned you had multiple sites, so they were multiple dance studios, I'm assuming, and then you had a separate franchisee portion of the
Yeah.
Is that how that worked?
Yeah, absolutely. What I realized was that there's quite a lot of value in a national brand. So I was very well known for being excellent with things like modern tap, ballet, jazz, the kind of the theatre arts. And I tried to start musical theatre classes like the drama, the singing, theatre dance, and just found it a real struggle. Like I just found it really difficult to get off the ground. People came to me for the exam-based classes, the syllabus, and I found it difficult to get the musical theatre classes to work. So that's why I bought a franchise in a theatre school, because the brand is quite big in terms of recognition. And so I went down let's go with somebody else's brand. And the network, the support from the franchisor was excellent. So I learned a lot about business by having a franchise. There was a lovely community where we could bounce ideas from each other, attend conferences, all the things that you didn't get to do as a solo dance school principal. So I actually really liked that side of the business. I found it challenging sometimes because you can't just do what you want to do. There are rules and there are guidelines and consequences if you break them, and you've signed a contract to say you will do this and you won't do it. So I find it very difficult after nearly 20 years suddenly having to follow somebody else's kind of rules and guidelines. But on the whole, I really loved, the other side of having a franchise business.
Yeah. And what would you say to people then with that sort of experience, having both sides of it, that are looking into licensed programs and things like that? We see a lot of licensed programs in the preschool, especially in that preschool age. Is that something that you would ever recommend to people, or you think that there's value in that sort of programming?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100%. I mean, I think a lot of the licensed programs or the franchises are fabulous. And I tell you why, to be really, truly excellent when you're delivering a service to kids, there's a lot of time and creativity and effort that has gone into it goes into creating a really excellent service. And just turning up to a studio with your playlist and your skill set is fine, especially if you're a wonderful teacher, but actually someone that has poured their heart and soul and several years into creating a syllabus, and they've got a really strong brand, and they've got purposely created music, all of these things. Basically, I'm a bit of a lazy person, and basically you're getting somebody else to spend the time and effort doing it for you, and then you get to benefit by just turning up and delivering the classes. So if you find something that you really resonate with, like if you really love a brand, if you really love what somebody stands for and what they've created, then I think it's worth every penny buying into that person's artistry and vision, and having an opportunity to run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I mean, there's been so many studios that come and go, but I do think that when you purchase into some of these licensed brands, that they may have a little bit more longevity when they've got that support and that ongoing network, like you mentioned. Speaking of which, I mean, what was it like running a studio for 27 years? And like I said, studios coming and going these days. There's a studio on every corner, right? There is in Australia anyway. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but it certainly is highly competitive, very different to what I thought it would be like many years ago. So I would love to hear that. Do you think the industry has changed since you first started?
I think, yeah, it is the same here. We do have an awful lot of dance schools, and some people have multiple schools right on their doorstep. So I'm sure this is probably the same for us as it is for you guys. And do I think it's changed? I think there are a lot more entrepreneurs out there nowadays, and I think that is the same across the whole of the business sector. I think there's a lot more people nowadays that feel like, actually, I want to be in charge of my own destiny. I want to create my own life, my own lifestyle, and my own business. I think people are a little bit braver at feeling like, particularly women nowadays, that feel like they can stand on their own 2 feet and create their own business. So I think things have changed in that respect. And so I think youngsters coming up through the dance industry that are now making choices about what they're going to do with their careers, I think it's far more normal and acceptable for youngsters to think, right, you know what, I'm gonna go out on my own. Like, I'm not going to go and get a job. I'm not going to go through university and get a degree and settle into a normal job. I'm going to follow my passion and do my things. I think it's changed in that respect, for sure. Yes.
Why do you think that's the case? Like, why do you think people are seeking that now?
I think in terms of, more, certainly for women, more women feeling they can do this. I think this is just to do with the change in equality. I think, very slowly we are moving away from, men are the bread earners and, women stay at home and cook and clean and have the kids. Like, that's just changed dramatically in the last 30 or 40 years, like beyond recognition. So I think that, nowadays it's quite acceptable for anybody. I'm not saying it's necessarily equal yet, but I think that has certainly led in our industry, because it is predominantly female. I know there's lots and lots of guys out there that have their own dance studios, but all my stats still say to me that 90% of my audience are still female. So I think one of the reasons it's changed is because it's more acceptable now for women to run their own businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a mum of 2, I am definitely empowered in that I feel, that I'm contributing to my home, that I'm the ruler of my own destiny. It's all of that. And we get a lot of that messaging through social media, the internet, all of that now. So it just makes it so much more accessible to have that knowledge that it is possible, and seeing those examples online definitely would be an influence today. So and I suppose you would be coaching a lot of women that are in the industry. So you would see a lot of that. I mean, we're both industry coaches, and there are such a variety of reasons why people seek mentorship, and studio owners or performing artists and dancers. What is a common challenge that you're seeing at the moment through your clients? Like, what are you seeing happening right now in this climate?
Yeah, so I think the number one biggest thing that people struggle with is time management. So what happens generally is somebody decides that they're going to start a few classes because they're passionate and they want to run the classes the way they want to run them. And so they start off in their little hired premises. They put some adverts out there. They have some kids come along. They're fantastic at what they're doing. The classes grow. Before they know it, they have a school. They're now a business owner. They didn't set out to be a business owner. They just set out to teach a few classes. This is generally how it goes. And what happens is things just get busier and busier and busier. 2 or 3 classes turns into 20 or 30 classes. And then eventually they get to the stage that they realize that they've built this beautiful, passionate, business that they're highly passionate about, that's their baby, and they can't grow any further unless they start to bring on other teachers. But very often people will get to the stage that they have squeezed every last minute of their day, 7 days a week, out of what they are physically capable of doing before they then go, hey, I can't do this anymore. I need some help with my administration, or I need more teachers to come on board. Like, there's still a demand. I've got kids moving up that we now need even more classes for. And at that point, people either decide to stick or move on. Like, they either say, right, this is as big as we're going to get because I don't want any teachers. I want to do it all myself. There is this part, sometimes I find this mindset with certain principals and studio owners of, I can't trust anybody else. No one's going to do it like me. No one's going to do it as well as me. And therefore, that's it. I can't really grow. I don't want to grow. I always want my business to stay personal. And they're convinced that if they bring anybody else into the fold, that it's going to stop being that wonderful personal experience. And of course, you and I know that that's not the case. That's just where you have to learn to be a great leader. You know, that's just down to you and your involvement and how you now manage those people that want to come in and work with you. So I think we have a whole group of people that love what they do, but they're really stretched. You know, their time is completely exhausted because they refuse to bring in anybody else. And then the opposite side of that is when people do have a team and they do have teachers and they do have administrators, and maybe they've got to the stage where they now own their own building, things are expanding, things are going great. But there's always I'm not earning enough money to bring in lots of help, and therefore I need to do it all myself, or I need to do 80% of it myself, or 90% of it myself. And so it's this horrible kind of vicious circle. And I think until people become a little bit better at learning how to build the business financially so that it's bringing in a good income, it's very difficult for them to then manage their time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started very similar many years ago now, but, you know, I started doing all the teaching, and then, you know, you bring in a teacher to support you and that grows and grows over time. And now I've got, you know, 10 teachers, administration staff, customer experience manager, all that jazz, but it certainly didn't start that way. And sometimes even still, that little nudge, you know, comes where I think, do I need that person? I could do what they're doing. I can do it. I can do what they do. And then I go, no. Whoa. Remember what it felt like, Joe, to do all the things. And like you said, you know, people are concerned about it not being done exactly the way they do it. But I think maybe we need to let go of that, let go of the perfection. And of course, our team is never going to be as invested as us. They might be close if we're lucky, but I just don't think it'll ever be exactly the same as our input or our energy or our passion. So it's natural that, you know, that we need to look outward and just go, hey, let it go. Even if it's at 80%, it's better than me doing all the things.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. I mean, I always say to my ladies and gents that, you know, you may work on a 9 out of 10 in your dance studio. Your team are only going to ever work at an 8 or a 9. Like, they're always going to be one step behind you. And so they should. You know, this is your passion. You're the one that has the vision and the heart in the business. Nobody can match that. But you know what? Having somebody working for you at an 8 or a 9, or even a 7 or an 8, is better than having nobody work for you, and then you're working actually in burnout. You're not working at a 9 or a 10. You're probably working in a 5 or 6, you know, in terms of your emotional and mental state, because you're so exhausted and burnt out, you know. So, you know, we think, I can't trust anybody. They won't do things as well as me. But actually, they probably will, because if you're a completely exhausted dance studio owner that's falling, you know, drastically out of love with your business because you're working 60, 70 hours a week and you're up all night and you're not getting financially rewarded for it, and all the things we know, then your teacher's working at an 8 or a 9 probably are going to be doing a great job for you,
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit of a misconception that we feel like somebody else can't do it as well as us, because I'd be really happy if I had team members working at an 8 or a 9, like one little notch below me, I'd be over the moon.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there about having it being financially rewarding. I think you can live off passion and the buzz for a little while, and then it gets really tiresome, and then it becomes a chore, and then you're resentful if you're not receiving, anything back financially from your business. So
Yeah,
that's a really
exactly.
important point.
Yeah, and I just came off a call yesterday with one of my clients, and she, we did a team session for her team as her business coach. With part of her package, I do a couple of sessions with her team, and we were talking. We did a session on onboarding and how they could be better at teachers to convert these trial students when they first come into the studio and they step into their studio. It's their first experience, and I did a little training around that with her teachers. And she shared at the end some goals and how many students she'd love to grow by, and she said, and if we can get to this number, and this is like her stretch goal, then I can pay myself a wage. And you could see all the teachers just kind of, what do you mean you can pay yourself a wage? And I kind of stepped in and sort of said, yeah, like basically you guys are earning a wage for turning up and teaching, but at the moment your studio owner isn't. Like, her overheads are so high, she's still building her business, that she's covering her costs, but she's not earning anything. And they couldn't quite get their head around the fact that their boss, who they thought was on a pretty little amount of money, wasn't earning anything. Like, you could see all these like light bulbs go off, like their faces were really confused. And so it's not always a bed of roses, is it? Especially when we're either when we're first building the business, or dare I say, even sometimes, sadly, 10, 20 years in, we can still be in that situation, which is where I feel, it's so sad that our passion doesn't result in a profit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you've been known to say that your studio became an uncontrollable monster. So tell me about that and what that felt like, I suppose, and what made it the monster that you describe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I grew my studios from sheer ambition, dedication, hard work, determination, tenacity, all these things. I think I always had quite an entrepreneurial spirit. I grew my first school. It got to the stage that it was so big, so successful after 2 or 3 years that I couldn't, like I said just now, couldn't continue on my own. So I started to build a team. And then I realized, actually, when you bring a team in, your profit goes down. So now my profit margin was much lower, even though my school was getting bigger and I had a lovely team. So then I was like, okay, so what I need to do to get more income here is to do this multiple times, because then I can be earning some profit here and some profit here and some profit here. And that all together cumulatively will be a nice big amount of profit. So I kind of set up my second school, and then my third, and then my fourth. And then I ended up with these 5 schools. And then, as I said, through sheer passion and determination, I grew those schools to the extent that with the theatre school as well, I had between 800 and 900 students across the board.
Which is a lot to manage. It's a lot.
It's a lot to manage. And especially as, those branches, if you kind of went from one to the other, the furthest apart, they were kind of 2 hours apart. So there was a lot of team to manage living in different locations. But what happened was the sheer passion and determination and hard work, had got me that far. But what I didn't realize was that actually being a really beautiful teacher and knowing how to teach at a really high standard didn't mean I knew how to run a business to a really high standard. And because I'd never had any mentoring, any business training, I got to the stage that it really needed managing at quite a high level. Like most people that are company directors and CEOs with 900 customers and a team of over 20, they've got some kind of experience in business. They're not getting up and they're not winging it every day, and that's what I was doing. I just grew this business that I was still winging. I call it being a professional winger. I got really, really good at just making it up as I went along.
Yeah.
And sadly, we had a few things happen. And here's a really interesting thing, Joe. For many, many, many years, I kind of led the blame culture thing. Oh, we had a recession. Oh, I had not 2, but 3 teachers over the course of 10 years that left and sat up on my doorstep, and oh, I went through a divorce. Oh, it was this reason. It happened, but what happened was the numbers started to go down and down and down and down. And gradually over the course of about 10 years, I almost lost everything. And it was when I was at the point where I literally was down to about 150 kids. I'd closed 2 or 3 branches. I had about 150 kids. There were about 2 teachers. I'm still sat there twiddling my thumbs saying, what on earth is going on? Why have I lost all these students? Why can't I stop this downward spiral? Why can't I build it back up again? Like, I'm doing all the things I've always done and nothing is working. At that point, I was like, right, what else can I do at 45? Like, can I go and retrain? Could I be a midwife? Like, what can I do? Because this is no longer bringing me in an income. And so I decided, kind of one last ditched attempt, because I was still very passionate about the dance industry. I went and got myself a business coach that specialized in the performing arts industry. And that's where I realized, and I learned over the course of a year, a very expensive program. It was kind of all my savings that went into this last rescue opportunity. I realized it was down to poor team management. I didn't know how to lead the people that were running my business. And so it was a really hard lesson to learn, actually. I got to the stage where I had such a big school and so many teachers that I just kind of left them all to it. And I didn't know at that stage, even after 20 years of running a studio, how on earth to run a studio. And it was just a massive moment for me. And I just thought, wow, like, actually, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I never have known what I'm doing. I've just done it on hard work and being brave. So I started learning about business, and I did it for myself, for my own school. And I invested a lot of money in coaches and mentors, had so many light bulb moments over the course of a couple of years. It wasn't true. Literally like, that's why my retention is not as good as it should be. Or these are the things I should have been doing all these years that would have, meant more income, or, masses of learning. And it was actually in amongst all that I realized this isn't just for me to improve my studio, to pick my studio back up again. I need to be sharing this. Like, I can't bear to see other dance school owners, particularly here in the UK, because there weren't really any business coaches in our industry, even just 3 years ago. I can't bear to see other people potentially go through what I went through. So that's where the coaching started. That I started helping some friends, some one-to-one friends, and from there it's just grown. Sorry, that was a really long-winded reply to your answer.
I love that, because you've actually answered my next question. It all just happened. But I love that because, it is true. It can be so important to get that mentorship and to get that guidance and just to get unstuck. We all get stuck. I don't think it matters where you are in your business, how far you've come, whether you 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure, 8-figure. I think there's always a moment where you get stuck, and just to be able to lean on someone or a program or whatever and help you through, I think that's really important for sure. And I love that. After 27 years, you moved on from being a studio owner, and then you went into that coaching space. I mean, how has that transition been? I think before we started hitting record, we were having a little quick chat, and you mentioned that you only just sold your last studio only a few months ago. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So I did sell most of the dance schools either before COVID or during COVID. But then I still had one school that's just gone quite recently. I had somebody that went in and was a principal for me. And yeah, that school has now gone because I think I just realized that, we all have different eras in our life. Like I'm in my 50s, and I have like I look back over my life in decades. Like when I was in my 20s, I was building my empire. And when I was in my 30s, this was happening, and this happened in my 40s. And now in my 50s, it's just like there's a new energy, a new love, a new passion that's obviously still in the dance industry, but now it's just changed. What it is that lights me up when I get up every day is just slightly different to what it used to be. And so I realized that where the joy was for me, the things that I used to get up in the morning and think, oh yes, I get to do this today, was the mentoring and the coaching, because I love to see the results that my clients are getting. I love to seeing them moving away from the pain or the unhappiness or the feeling of stuck, like you said, Joe. I love to see them transitioning in the progress that they make. And I just realized that actually life is a little bit short. Let's not spend our life doing things that we don't love anymore or that doesn't light us up. Let's try and work more towards the things that do. And having discovered a new kind of zone of genius, I pledged to myself that I wanted to just work in that zone. And so, yeah, I moved away from being a studio owner and now help others instead. I'm still an examiner as well. I examine for the ISTD, which is a big examination board here in the UK. And I still do that. So I still have my hand in, watching children, and I love examining. It's just adorable, seeing children running in and working their hardest to impress you, and all their hard work. I still love that. That's a zone of genius as well. But yeah.
Yeah. And, that's just dipping your toe in and keeping relevant and still being a part of the action. Out of curiosity, once you did go and see a mentor, you mentioned that the business did dip and you were trying to find, your way out of this hole that you dug for yourself, essentially.
Yeah.
Were you able to build it back up? Like, did you strengthen it again? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So basically, I just went absolutely all in for 2 years. So for 2 years, I implemented every single thing that I was learning. And for me, I was in a program with obviously some other great female dance studio owners. I think there were a couple of guys, mostly actually Australians or Americans, like, because we don't have anything in the UK. There's just wasn't anything available over here. So I implemented everything, but I was doing everything twice because I was doing it all for my dance studio and then again for the theatre school. So every time somebody was, scheduling their social media for the next 3 months, I was doing 2 businesses. Like I literally did everything twice, and I did that for 2 years because I really, that was still the whole purpose at that point. I wasn't even thinking about becoming a coach or a mentor. And yeah, so the theatre school doubled within a year. So I managed to turn that from kind of breaking even and earning me like a tiny amount to that earning me a nice amount. The dance school, I think, grew by 40% in 18 months. So that went from kind of breaking even to being in profit. So yeah, it was really lovely to see. Well, it was incredibly important for me to see that if you do these things, it works. And I wouldn't be coaching now if I didn't see the fact that these things worked.
Absolutely. And also it's really important to mention because we do have different seasons of our lives, and I don't think we're all going to be 99 and still with a studio, right? So even if you do get into that lull, it's still important to continue and build it up so that when you go to sell it, that there's still value there, and that you don't let it dip so far down and just lose all hope that when you go to sell, it's like it's not worth what it could have been worth if you just maybe pushed through to that sale period or had a strategy around that process.
Yeah. And some people come to me because they're right at the start of their journey and they want that guidance and support to get it right from the beginning. So I have studio owners that joined me before they've even opened their doors. And then I have people that are with me that have had their school 50 years that are wanting to learn how to create an exit strategy, and it might be that they're going to retire and sell their school and they want their school to be healthy and something that's worth selling, or it may be that they just want to step right back and still be the owner and earn a monthly amount from it, but actually not have anything to do with the day-to-day running. And so, I always think sometimes people think that the only option is to eventually one day sell their school. But actually, I equally believe that there are ways that you can create a strategy where you are no longer hugely involved. We're maybe talking an hour's meeting once a month, and somebody else runs it and keeps the school ticking over for you. So, but yes, definitely, I have people from all different stages, all wanting to create different things. And it's exciting to see everybody doing different things with their schools.
So what advice would you give to someone, if you could give any key advice, what would you give to someone who's starting out? They're in the dance industry, they're starting out, they want to open up a studio. What would you say to them?
Get yourself a business mentor. And I'm not just saying that because I am one and here's my number. No, I'm saying it because what I said earlier, like, you will just become a professional winger. You will be making it up on the spot as you go. And the problem is, most people that actually start a dance studio, they can only run it from their own previous experiences. So they tend to run and start their schools along the similar way to how their principal ran it. So their teacher, oh, I'm going to do it this way. That's all I've known. I've only ever known it to be this way. The tiniest thing, we used to start modern and tap at 5. And one day I sat down after 5 years of having my own studio and thought, why do I start them at 5? And I just thought, because that's what my teacher did. And I just assumed that's what you should do. But actually, there's no reason we couldn't do this younger. And it just kind of like, it's almost like the way we were taught, the school that we grew up in feels like that's God. Like,
oh, totally.
Like that's how.
I totally understand that, because when I first started my studio, I was running it like, typical dance studio. I had ballet, tap, jazz, I had, all the things. But I actually realized over time that my passion and my niche was in musical theatre. So I went from having a dance studio to actually, creating Musical Makers Club, which I now have. Well, I had 7 branches. I now have 4. That's why I'm quite interested in your story, actually, when you talked about the theatre school. I find that really intriguing. But yeah, I actually found that once I niched into musical theatre, that's when the traction began, because I was into it. I always thought, no, you have to offer ballet, you must offer tap, you must offer these things, because that's what you do. That's the school I went to. And then I realized, well, no, I don't. If they want those things, they can go elsewhere. I don't have to be all things to all people. And as soon as I realized that, I fell in love with my business, and people could feel that, I think. And then the traction began.
100%, Joe. I just think so often we create the school that we think we should have. We create it in a way that we think parents expect. If you don't want to be an exam school, don't do exams. You just simply don't attract the parents that are looking for exams. You attract the parents that aren't looking for exams, that are on the same wavelength as you. And that's where your values and your mission and your vision statements all come in. Create the school that you want to have, not the school that everybody else thinks you should have. And I think that's just, it's so important, because you're going to be, I talked about getting up in the morning and feeling passionate and working in my zone of genius. If I have to get up and run a business that is not fully aligned with me, because I'm having to do these things that I don't want to do, then you are not going to put the same energy into that side of things as the things that you love. And even if you try your hardest, I guarantee it is not going to be as successful. So just make life easy for yourself, folks. Like, go for what you love. And you don't have to. You're absolutely right. You don't have to do all the things that everybody else wants you to do. You can create your business however you want. It's your business.
Yeah,
it's
and you'll enjoy it so much more, right? On the flip side of that, we talked about what your advice would be to someone who's new to, wanting to open up a studio. What about someone who, like yourself, was in, has been in the dance studio game for decades, right? And maybe they're feeling like it's flailing, or maybe they're just feeling there's no energy or passion left. Like, how can you reignite the flame, or should you reignite the flame?
Yeah, that's a really lovely question. And, I was saying earlier that I have people that are right at the beginning of their journey and people that have had their studio for a long time. And what I love to see in particular is those people who are running schools. They can do it standing on their head. They've been doing it for 30 years, but it's just become, a job. It's just become a little bit mundane. And to see people that come into, so I have a membership based models. People come into my membership within 2 or 3 weeks, they are on fire. Like, they are literally, they have got their mojo back. They're loving their school. And I think what happens for them is they have their eyes opened to a whole bunch of stuff that, like myself, that I should have been doing all the years that I wasn't doing. And, I'm not Albert Einstein, Joe. I'm not teaching someone brand new theories that have never been out there. Sometimes people say to me, Deborah, I know all this, but why haven't I been doing it? Like, you're not teaching me anything. Sometimes things are brand new that people don't know, but sometimes it's stuff that they kind of know, but it's that obvious that they weren't doing it. And so when it's packaged together in a beautiful training, and I say, right, this is why we need to do this, and this is how you could go about it, and here's some ideas. And also in my membership, we have Q&A sessions where we share. There's a lot of sharing that goes on within my members, and people come up with such great ideas because we're all creatives. And to have somebody that's feeling a bit stale, that's not so in love with their studio anymore, and they suddenly go, oh, I could do this, that person's doing so and so, that's working really well for them. Maybe I should have a team mentoring program within my business. I've never thought to do that. And all of a sudden they're inspired again. They fall back in love with their school. And it could be something as simple as I teach them about some systems that will save a whole bunch of time. And they say, Deborah, we implemented these systems. Why haven't I been doing this all these years? Now I have an extra 5 hours a week on my of time. Now I get to have coffee with my best friend, and I go to a yoga class, and life just feels more balanced. There's so many different ways in which somebody can fall back in love with their business, but it's so beautiful when that happens.
And speaking of systems, you created the ultimate dance business planner. And was that to support your clients specifically when you first created it, or was it always your intention to sort of share that to a wider audience?
I think I had a planner. I followed an online coach who created a beautiful planner, and it made me it created a lot more structure in my day. I would sit down each day and I would create 3 goals. Like, if I don't get anything else done, these 3 things are a must. And then there was space down the side where I could break down into smaller steps how I was going to go about those goals. So these are the strategies of what I need to create today, and these are the action steps I need to take. Bit like when we teach dance, I've got to teach half a dance to my kids today. I've got to finish off their recital dance, their show dance. So this is what I've got to do, finish the dance. And this is the choreography that I'm going to do. And I started planning my day, like properly planning and structuring the processes and the what was going to happen that day and that week. And it really changed everything. The focus, it made me so much more focused, and I was getting so much more done. And I thought, wow, if I could create this, but on top of that, create it so that there's a page to set out your goal for the future month. Then at the end, we have what I call the director's review, where they can put down, we have this many trial students. This is how many we converted. This is how many we've got now. This is how many Facebook followers we've got. This is how much we've increased our website traffic. Like, these are the things that I got done and I achieved. These are the things I didn't achieve. Why didn't I achieve those? And here's a treat for myself. this is how I'm going to treat myself for having such a great month. And I just created it so that it spoke to the dance studio owners. There's a little bit of training in there as well. So it helps people to learn how to work equally across the board. And yeah, I just wanted everybody to have a bit more structure, because let's face it, we all have, running a dance studio, a pretty chaotic,
and
chaotic
creative
life.
minds are so chaotic too. It's really interesting. I mean, I love a plan. I love a plan. I mean, if you could see the wall behind this screen, you've got my big whiteboard. I've got my 90-day planner. I've got it all happening, right? I love a good plan. And actually, I put down, I love that you mentioned the 3 key points. You do that daily. I do that by the week. I put my 3 key points for the week, and then I break it down. But I mean, same, but I love the concept of that. And I love that you've also got the goals, and you're putting down those the stats, the metrics as well. So they've got that little bit of a dashboard happening in their diary. I think that's in their planner rather. I feel like that's a really good idea, because too often studio owners are not recording the data. So how can you improve unless you know what's happened in the past, or why things are happening, or,
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that I teach around measuring your numbers and being better with your finances, and because I know how dreadful I was. But even breaking that down into the most simplest way, like if you just can't get your head around being really on top of all your numbers and your figures, that's fine. I understand that. But if the very least you do is flip back to the month before and look at the numbers and go, oh no, we've gone down in our income, or we've lost some followers, or we didn't have very many trial students. Let's work on this a bit harder this month. Or look at it and go, wow, we've improved on the month before. Like, we just need, if nothing else, the bare minimum is to just have that snapshot where we just measure it, we put it down, and we can compare it from month to month. Like, that's what I call the bare minimum. I'd love for you guys to be doing lots more than that. But, even that, and it's lovely. I go back over my planner from 2 years ago now, and there's my figures for the month and my income for the month, and I'm like, oh, how cute. Look what I was earning when I first started 2 years ago, and I was so excited when I, had my first coaching month where I earned £300. Like, that was huge, and it allows me to follow my own journey, and to appreciate how far I've come.
Yeah, I love that so much. So much. So that's the Ultimate Dance Business Planner, everyone. So make sure you check that one out. Now, I wanted to ask you, because we're going to wrap up soon, but I love to ask my guests, who or what inspires you?
Oh, what inspires me is every single dance boss out there that is working super hard, ultimately for something that they are passionate about, that serves others. To me, life is all about the service that we can give to others, the love that we can share with each other. And so to see people that are prepared to put that at the absolute foremost of everything they do. Like, we don't run a dance business because we want to earn a stack load of money. Let's face it. We don't go into it because we want to be rich. We go into it because we love our students, we love teaching, and we love our passion. And the fact that people are prepared to work and dedicate their lives to that, it just inspires me every day, and it makes me feel inspired to create my own journey too.
Oh, I love that. Now, what's next? What's next for Deborah? What's coming up, Deborah Laws?
Well, this year was a huge year for me, because, this year I started the podcast. I also created the UK's first ever dance business conference. So we now have a conference in the UK where you can go for 2 days and just study business for the dance sector. And that was huge for me. That was a very big, monumental step forward into bravery, because it was the first one, because people didn't really know what this event was. They hadn't got any proof or testimonials of what it was. Like, I found that so hard to get that off the ground. I also created 13 dance business awards, because I feel like we should be more celebrated for all our efforts in our industry. And so I created this new event that was huge. very pleased to report it was a huge success. Next year I've already sold double the amount of tickets, and they only went on sale for 3 days 6 weeks ago. So it's going to be huge next year. So in terms of what's new, I am definitely not doing anything new next year. Last year nearly killed me.
I love that conference idea, though, and everything that you're doing there. I think it's so important to bring the community together. I suppose a lot of people in our industry would actually understand the risk involved with running an event or putting on something like that, or putting yourself out there. So, congratulations to you for that, because I commend you for that, because I think we need more of those sorts of industry events, most definitely. And I love the awards as well. That's very special.
Yeah. And, we had exhibitors as well. So we had exhibitors, we had sponsors, we had 2 days for dance studio owners, but then we also had a separate room with an event for teachers, so that the dance studio owners could bring their teachers. We had a dinner dance. Like it was a really it was a really big event.
Did you hear the thing fall in the background? Sorry.
I did, yeah.
That's okay.
But to me, it's about trying to provide the things that we don't have, and we do have a bit of FOMO here in the UK, because, we look at other areas of the world and there are amazing dance bus conferences you can go to. And there are, awards in different countries for different things, and mentors and coaches. You guys have all had these things for several years before we've got them. And I suppose there's just that, again, that little entrepreneur spirit in me that kind of says, we don't have this, so let's create it. Like,
that spins me out, because I would have thought, honestly, that the UK would have been, just a little bit forward from Australia from that. But I suppose we get a lot of American influence, and they're all over it. So that absolutely that does surprise me.
It was very fascinating when I did my couple of years studying business. And as I said to you before, it was mostly with Americans and Australian studio owners. It really fascinated me because, we have a fabulous West End. We're really well known for our theatre. We have excellent training, amazing colleges. But the art, the dance industry as an art form is amazing and really good in our country. But in terms of the business side of these things, it was way behind, way behind. And I another podcast, I'll explain all the things that you guys do that we're still learning from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you'll be quite shocked if you heard some of the areas that we do for free, or we don't earn any money from. But we're getting there. That's one of the things I'm on a mission to help people to realize.
You're advocating for the UK dancepreneurs. I love that. Absolutely. I love that so much. And I've been to the West End to see Chicago. So there you go. That's as much as I know of the West End, but I absolutely loved it. So now, if people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, so my business is called Dance Business Lab. So you can check that out on Google. But in terms of social media, I'm more a Facebook than Instagram girl, just because that's where the majority of my customers hang out. So it's Dance Business Lab Community is the name of our Facebook group. That's the free Facebook group. But it's also Dance Business Lab on Instagram as well. And if you're loving the idea of the planner, you can actually purchase that on Amazon. It's available in Australia. I just had someone that bought one yesterday.
We'll pop a link in the show notes for you as well. So thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time and for getting up early, because I know it's 6:30 p.m. here in Sydney, but 8:30 a.m. there for you, which isn't too bad, but still early. So I appreciate it.
It's not too bad at all.
Thank
you so much for having me. It's been real fun. Thanks, Jo.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to today's show. I hope you enjoyed that interview recap with Deborah Laws. Now, just a reminder to celebrate my international launch and for me dipping my toe into the UK market with my Talent Manager Bootcamp course, I'm giving away today a how-to guide, go from studio owner to talent manager, normally $27 to you for free today. Simply head to the link in the show notes, which is essentially my store, josephinelancuba.com/store, scroll down, find the guide, click it, And when you get to the checkout, simply pop in the promo coupon code UK23 and that'll wipe out the cost for you and it'll be totally free for you today. Enjoy the guide and enjoy the day. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed listening and would like to hear more, be sure to click subscribe. If you're really feeling the love, share us with your friends. To work with me or to simply find out more about the magic of creativity, arts and business, head to my website josephinelancuba.com and you can find me on socials. I also have a book that I've co-written with a bunch of amazing entrepreneurial women called The Women Changing the World. And you can grab a copy of that at josephinelancuba.com/books. Thanks for listening.